Welcome to Belief Busters Podcast, where we change the world one belief at a time. True transformation happens when we question if the beliefs we hold are of truth, or simply someone else's belief that we have internalized as our own. I'm your host, Rev. Cherie Taylor-Jones, and I'm glad you could join us on the journey. And now for the conclusion of our episode on Belief Busters.
It's by giving them this knowledge, how their mind works, how they form their beliefs. Yeah. How you form the beliefs is from a perspective of a child. The child believes everything their parents tell them.
Yes.
They believe it because there is no one. Yes, it confuses their mind because deep inside they still have their own intuition, their own heart. But the more you tell a child, they start to believe it. Yeah. They start, okay, if my parents say that, that must be true. So we start to believe the belief that I can't show my emotions because if I do, I will be punished, or I will be rejected, or I will not be loved. My needs will not be met, right? So, however, when we grow up, right, we still believe subconsciously, we still believe we will be rejected. We will be, it's a failure. It's a weakness, and it's painful. We can be punished. We still believe that. And when I understand, I tell clients like, yes, you are a child. Look at that. You were a child and you formed that belief. But what do you know now that you didn't know as a child of 5? And they usually like, oh, I can cry. Like no one will punish me for that, right? Like they understand. Like, oh yes, I have a voice. I can say no if I feel like this is my, like benefit in my health or well-being, right? Like I can do this and this. Could you do that when you were 5? No. That's why you formed the belief that you have to shut it down in order to survive. Our mind always wants to keep us safe. Yes. Always wants to keep our body living as long as possible because that's the mind's, a job to keep us safe. Yes, to keep us safe. So as a child, your mind will do everything. If it means to shut down the feelings, to shut down the pain and not express emotions, that's what the mind will do in order to keep you safe. Yeah,
absolutely. And what's really interesting is our minds as young children, they're not fully formed yet. So we learn to cope and we take that in as just programming. Like this is the way the world works. And self-actualization really comes when we're willing to look at all of those unconscious beliefs that drive us. We're not even aware of how they really still operate in our lives and outpicture in the phobias, in the fears, in the unfulfilled lives, in the dissatisfaction of our lives, in the broken relationships that we have. And so this is really a powerful turning point in self-actualization when we are able to finally say, I'm willing to look at the beliefs. Like I learned Santa Claus was not real, and now I'm willing to look at so many other things that are not real or no longer serve us, or I no longer need to be in that survival mentality anymore.
Absolutely. I always tell when they go into the memory, there is very emotional, right? Unexpected, dramatic, right? Isolated. I bring them into the future and tell them, well, imagine someone comes to you right now, you're 45, and someone tries to do this to you when you're 45. And they're like, well, I'll just, I can protect myself. I can protect myself now. But they do that in this, very relaxed state, just like when, it's a meditation, just like we are praying, just like we are meditating. You are in the moment, right? In yourself. So when they do that, they realize that the realization comes in that they have the choice and they have resources, so much more than they had as a child. Always, I tell people that your subconscious mind, unconscious mind doesn't understand time. It doesn't live in any time frames. It replays everything like it's happening today. Your logic, yeah, understands time, right?
Yeah.
That's why we try to suppress it, to hide it in the closet, But your subconscious mind doesn't know time. It doesn't understand until you help it to understand that, oh, yeah, I was a child, but not anymore. There is so much more I can do now that I couldn't do. So they kind of develop self-compassion. They forgive themselves for forming those beliefs, because a lot of people think that something is wrong with them. There is something wrong with me. It must be my fault.
Yeah.
We also bring, that wasn't your fault. Correct. You were just a child. Yeah. Correct. And then they realize that the shift happens. And then they have the understanding. And every time they get triggered, for example, if it's a phobia, right? Every time they are in contact with like, I don't know, flying or driving, they realize, oh, that's why I was afraid of driving. Because I was afraid of dying. Oh, that's why I was afraid of dying. Because I wasn't connected to myself. I didn't do what I love. I had so much guilt and shame, So there are a lot of there is a lot of root causes of the fear of dying, but fear of dying becomes this trigger for the fear of flying, for the fear of driving, for anxiety, social anxiety, health anxiety, whatever it is. So they're creating that little space between the trigger and reaction and themselves and the object of the fear of the. So they create in this little space, couple of seconds when they do. Oh, this is why I was afraid, but I'm not afraid of dying anymore. Yes. Because I don't have those triggers. Though fear of dying is a universal fear, right? But once we understand how our mind works, that there is a body, mind, and spirit, and how it's all interconnected, we come to terms with how our body works, right? How our mind works. And then we stop to be so afraid, having this phobia,
Yes. It's also really interesting when we're children, our survival really kicks in regarding our parents. So we would rather make ourselves wrong than make our parents wrong, because in our mind, our very survival and well-being is based on our parents' ability to love and take care of us. And yes. that seems like such a small concept to get, but it really is a huge concept, because that's the point of really the disconnecting of our soul, the disconnecting from our intuition, the disconnecting from our knowing. And when we get that, there is, when you talked about being able to now put that space in between the trigger, really profound at that point.
Absolutely. Yeah. The more you learn about yourself, the more space you create between the trigger and your reaction. Because for many people, it's just this. They don't even have time. The trigger, they get reaction.
Yes.
And then but as you said, the disconnection, we so want to survive as children, as little kids, right? I'll disconnect from myself in order to please, even if I'm not wrong, that's okay. I need to survive. And disconnection is the main root cause of depression.
Yes.
Of us not following what our hearts, right? Not following our intuition, because we unlearn that. We unlearn that skill to listen to our intuition, but it doesn't mean that it's not there. It's always there. No one can take our intuition. No one can take our confidence. No one can take our self-love. We could shut it down, but definitely no one can take it away. It's not something physical.
Right. And so now I call this remembering our truth, right? That there is we're now in that process of unlearning and now embodying the truth of who we are, right? That we are these emotional and divine spiritual beings that are just magnificent. And we have these amazing gifts of compassion, of love, of caring that can change the planet. It really can.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, Kate, can you go a little further as far as we give ourselves permission to feel all of the feelings and emotions that we've been told over time are not acceptable. So we now give ourselves permission to feel that. And in the beginning, there's such an intensity to those emotions that we finally just kind of unplug. And can you support people then in once they kind of feel that it's not going to stay to that level of intensity, and how they can then work forward from there, please?
Yeah, absolutely. This is such a great question because I usually tell people, clients, or just if I met someone, right, and I have a conversation, I will always talk to them about, I will connect them to the more understandable things for them. So for example, I tell them, when you have a surgery, right, mm-hmm. you are having a surgery and you're having a recovery time. So doctors are telling you, go lay down, rest for 2 weeks, right? For 10 days or for 3 weeks or even more. The same happens when you unlock those emotions, you express those emotions. This is like having a surgery. Yeah. This is like, you need a recovery stage. You need a recovery. So being gentle on ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe slowing down after we express that emotion. It can be very overwhelming. So then I tell, just like after surgery, you need a recovery. The same happens when you express your emotions. You need the recovery. So maybe connecting to nature, maybe spending more family time, maybe seeking support from the people who love you. That will help you to recover from that huge unload of emotions. Also, I always tell them that everything is temporary. I show them on the different nature, things. Look, winter comes in, it's temporary. Summer comes in, it's temporary. Remember yourself in college. You probably thought, oh, you were so stressed, it will never end. But the college ended, right? The same was this. Everything is temporary, right? So I tell them that the same with emotions and being overwhelmed and maybe feeling this pain again, this emotional pain. It is temporary, just like seasons of the nature. That's just like seasons of the year and months and our kids growing up, right? Everything is temporary. So then they're like, oh yeah, that's true. So just be gentle. Recovery stage. I always tell them, when we unload emotions, our mind and body lets go. So sometimes people experience physical symptoms, right? Mm-hmm. They get sick, right? They catch a flu or they catch a cold because immune system just slows down. Give me time.
And then what's really powerful is that as we're dealing on life's terms, we can use those emotions, as you mentioned previously, to kind of do a shortcut for us in figuring things out and connecting with our intuition a lot faster and being able to really know how to handle experiences that used to cripple us in the past are now like, oh, yeah, I know how to handle that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I love working with fears and phobias, because these are triggered things, right? They're triggered, like every time you go to the store and you have social anxiety, you feel overwhelmed with all of these people. But when you understand the root cause, why that happened, you go into the store like, that's interesting. I was so afraid of that because that's the belief I formed from my childhood, or maybe something traumatic happened in their adulthood, right? Yeah. That created that social anxiety. The same with fears, right? When you understand where it comes from, I tell them all the time, every time you're going to come in contact with the trigger, you will think, oh, this is why I was. And that creates that space. And that's all you need. And right. Then that fear and that trigger doesn't serve its purpose anymore.
Yes. You move from being reactionary to having your amygdala hijacked so you're thinking that it's a life and death situation, to being able to have the breath, to have the space, to be able to respond, to come from your intuition and your highest self.
Yes, absolutely. Like, for example, fear of public speaking. People have this, fear of criticism, rejection. But when they understand that they were rejected in childhood or punished or criticized, and that's when they formed that belief that I cannot speak up, I can't show up for myself. No. It's better to be like, when they understand that, and they are, in their adulthood, and they want public speaking to be a part of their life, right? They want to be confident. They create that space between the trigger when they're in the public. It's like, oh, I was 6 and I was speaking up and I was criticized or punished or, rejected, right? I was bullied or whatever it was, right? But I'm not 5 anymore. I'm not 6. I am 43 and I'm completely capable, and no one will reject me.
Yes.
No one will laugh at me. And usually people are very understanding, especially when the people are worried about, right, in public. They're very understanding.
What's the one thing you want our listeners to get from this conversation?
Yeah, I would love for listeners to have a list of the important things in their life, like self-acceptance, right? Self-love, connecting to the divine, right? Family, connections, relationship. Put that list and put it on your mirror. And every time you have to make a decision, go to that list and say, does that align with my important things? If it does, go ahead, because that will bring you the fulfillment and happiness and joy and excitement. If it doesn't align with that, then it's not that important. Whether you do it or not, it shouldn't bring you any anxiety or any worry. And that's how you disconnect from the material world. This is how you disconnect. You see the material things, the things that you accomplish buying. You feel like, oh, that's not important. It's here, but tomorrow it might disappear. But I'm here. And that's the most important part.
Yes. Thank you. Would you tell our listeners how you work with people and what your technique is and how they can get in contact with you, please?
Yeah, so I work as a rapid transformational therapist. So it's the modality of relaxation, hypnosis, but a very light one. When the person is very aware of where they are, what they are talking about, they remember everything. And in that meditative state, we're going to explore, to investigate their past and look at those events, limiting beliefs that they formed, and we reframe them. We kind of integrate them into the present. So they become so aware of that root cause, and then it just shifts everything around them. Because a lot of people just have this lack of information. They don't know where it's coming from. They don't know where their pain is coming from. Yeah, and that's how I work in these sessions, one-on-one, when we explore, we investigate the past, and then we reframe those beliefs. We transform them. The person then listens to the recording where they have these affirmations, like, right? Beautiful words how they see their life without the problem. And that kind of rewires the brain. And then everything changes. They make little shifts every single day.
Yes, that is powerful. And my friends, rewiring the brain, it's a thing. We can do that. It's a powerful, powerful technique to really shift your consciousness, to shift your belief system, and to self-actualize in an amazing way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Sometimes people can do them by themselves. Sometimes people are, they are becoming self-aware. They are working towards, they're doing the inner work, and they can do it by themselves. For some people, they need guidance. They need someone to guide them in the beginning so that they can do it in the future.
Kate, and how do people get in contact with you?
Yeah, I have a website where they can get in touch and reach out to me, and I always respond. And they can absolutely find me on the Google by katesemeniuk.com, and they can read about me. They can. I'm very active on social media. I always post about different mind-body connections and how our mind works, right, and how to do the self-therapy. How to do the self-therapy. I always teach that people that you can do it by yourself as well. So I'm very active on Instagram, and I'm very active on YouTube and Facebook. So they can find me by just typing Kate Semeniuk, RTT therapist. Kate and Semeniuk, Semeniuk.
Beautiful.
So katesemeniuk.com.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure having you on this podcast, and it's a rarity that I get to speak with someone who's really in sync with like beliefs, and that they can be changed. They can be reframed into a powerful way of living and being happy in our lives. Oh my God. So this was just a treat for me, Kate. Thank you.
Oh, it was a pleasure to be here and to share this knowledge with your audience. And I'm sure they can get this insight, and they can do that letter. They can write that letter, and they can figure out what is important in their life. And they will be very surprised by what they find out.
And for our Belief Buster posse, the essence of this program is about empowering you to look at your beliefs, the things that we learned as kids that are no longer serving us. They worked for us in survival, and now as adults, we can choose to let those things go and really breathe into why we're here on this planet, how we're here to elevate each other, love each other, be filled with compassion, and really live a juicy filled life. It's yours. You can make it. You can create it. So I'm hoping that you'll take Kate's technique about writing that letter to really start your transformation. If you are enjoying these conversations about assessing your belief systems and how to transform outdated beliefs, then please subscribe and give us a positive review. To support this podcast and its transformative work, you can also become a sponsor for as little as $5 a month. You can reach Rev Cherie at info@beliefbusterspodcast.org. To continue on this journey of evolution, you can also get my book, Turning Your Why into Why Not, at Amazon or any other bookstores, which gives you practical tools to do this work. See you next time on the flip side.